Hi, everyone. My name is Paul Sevilla, Public Services Librarian at the Livermore Public Library. Welcome to tonight's program on Internet safety. This program is being recorded and it will be available to view on the library's YouTube channel. At the end of the presentation, we're going to have a Q&A session, and you can post your questions on the chat. Just click on the chat button below your screen. I'm sharing with you a link to the program survey that you can fill out after tonight's event. And now let me introduce our presenter this evening. Her name is Uma Shankar. She is a senior in Irvington High School in Fremont. And she intends to major in computer science. At her high school, there is a senior final project called Quest. And cybercrime is a topic that she is very interested in. And so Uma chose this topic, and she will share with you her knowledge and what she learned about internet safety with you all tonight. And I hope you find this presentation useful. And now I'll hand it over to Uma.
Thank you, Mr. Sevilla. Hi, as he mentioned, my name's Uma Shankar, and I'm a senior at Irvington High School. And let's begin. First off, this slide. About this presentation, internet safety is for everyone, and now that so many people are working and learning from home, internet safety is more important than ever. And so this presentation is geared towards all age groups and covers various topics such as identity theft, cyberbullying, misinformation, phishing, and other topics related to using the internet safely. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me at the end of the presentation through the chat function, or you can contact me at this email address, which will be shown again at the end of the presentation. First off, the consequences of cybercrime. What makes cybercrime so bad, and what effects can it have on you? Cybercrime is any kind of crime committed using the internet, and some common types are phishing or email scams, spoofing, which means imitating a trustworthy person or vendor, ransomware, which is holding all the data on a victim's devices, such as computers or phones, until they pay the criminal, usually in some kind of cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin. There's also identity theft, which is using a victim's identity to take loans or commit other crimes, and this can be the most severe of all of them. The general goal of cybercrime is to steal the money, identity, or private data of its victims. And according to the FBI, cybercrime rates and losses have been consistently increasing since the year 2000. And here's one case of identity theft in particular, which is a type of cybercrime. And a quote from Sean Schurter on the theft of his 16-year-old daughter's identity: "This will affect my daughter's ability to get a student loan for college, or to get a car after high school, or to get her own cell phone. It will affect her for the rest of her life." And cybercrime does have grave consequences. In this case, identity theft can affect a victim's credit, which will make it difficult to get loans, and so, as can be seen in this quote, will make it very hard for them to advance in other areas of life. And during the COVID-19 pandemic in particular, cybercrime rates have skyrocketed. This is probably because so many people are learning and working from home. And this means lots more devices are in use, and so there are many more available victims, as well as available criminals. Many new phishing scams, malicious websites, and misinformation campaigns related to COVID-19 have used fear and anxiety about the virus to make people buy fake medical products, give away personal information, or download malware. In August of 2020, Interpol, or the International Police, predicted an increase in these scams when the COVID-19 vaccine comes out. And now that it is in circulation for some groups in some places, watch out for scams related to the vaccine in particular. And now I believe it is time for the next section, which is protecting yourself with software. What can you do to prevent cybercrime before it happens? There's one thing you can do, antivirus software. This helps protect your devices by scanning data entering your devices through the internet. It flags suspicious behavior and blocks or removes malware. It protects your device from malware such as spyware, which steals sensitive information, ransomware, which involves extorting you for money, and viruses, including worms and trojans. Worms are a kind of quick, self-replicating virus designed to spread as far and fast as possible. Trojans are generally more dangerous. Like their namesake, the Trojan horse, they hide in things that a user may want to download and are actually a virus hidden. There's also adware, which can cause unwanted advertisements on your device, and spam or unwanted emails. I'm sure we've all heard about the common Nigerian prince scam. Antivirus software will be far less effective if you don't keep it regularly updated, so make sure to regularly update your computers and other devices. Many of these updates contain security fixes, and so this is the baseline for having a secure device. And some reliable antivirus programs are McAfee and Norton. And there's another thing you can do to protect your devices, data backups. Backing up your data means storing all the contents of your device on a different outside device. So if your data is backed up, all of your files will be safe if your device breaks, is lost, or is locked by ransomware. For example, if you break your laptop and you get a new one and it's backed up, you can back up all the files from your old laptop onto the new one. It's kind of like preserving the way your laptop is at a certain moment in time. And if it breaks or it's affected by ransomware, which means you can't get the files inside, you can have it factory reset and load your old data from your data backup. It'll be just like it used to be before. And there are many ways with different advantages and drawbacks to back up your data. For Macs or MacBook computers, iCloud Backups is an excellent service, but it can be expensive. And for Windows devices, Microsoft OneDrive is a reliable and trustworthy option. And this is one of the most common topics discussed in internet safety, passwords. Don't use the passwords like these. They are very common and so very easy to crack, as can be seen in the image. How to create strong passwords. Are password generators worth it? Some of you may have seen browser recommended passwords that are very difficult to remember or are long and complicated, but these passwords are generally also more secure. And so I went online and looked up a random password generator that would give a nice secure password that is difficult to break. See, it's got 16 characters in the password, symbols, numbers, lowercase and uppercase characters, and this is the password I got. And it can be remembered with Apple, percent, Hulu, Korean, yeah, no one's gonna remember this. Passwords like these are easy for machines to guess because they're just random sequences of characters, but they're very difficult for humans to remember. There's something called the passphrase method, which allows you to make passwords that are equally secure, but much easier for us humans to not forget. How do you do this? Choose at least 4, or ideally at least 6, uncommon words that don't make logical sense together. For example, correct horse battery staple. Things like my beautiful red house or the cat in the hat would not work, as they include common words, make grammatical sense, or are a well-known phrase. Make up a pattern to make these more random. For example, join words with the caret symbol and capitalize the second letter of each word to get the phrase that's on the slide. And additionally, if these passwords are still too hard to remember, the use of a password manager, such as LastPass, Keeper, or Dashlane, can help you remember passwords and, most importantly, keep you from being tempted to reuse them. Reusing passwords can be very dangerous because if one of your accounts is hacked, the criminal can try using your password on several other sites or applications to see if you reuse the password. So if you don't make sure you have different passwords for every account you have online, if one password is breached, then several of your accounts may be at risk. And now I think it is time for the first poll. This is just a quick poll, 2 questions, multiple choice, and I'll give you a minute and a half to answer. One second. Here you go. All right, looks like everyone has finished voting, so let me end the poll. Okay, so looks like most of you got the correct answers. For the first question, what can backing up your data protect you from? 1 and 2 are both correct, because losing your files if your device is lost or destroyed, or ransomware, both of these things won't be a problem if your data is backed up. However, the thing with ransomware, it's a kind of virus where it's like, if you try and start up your laptop, it'll say something like, you are not allowed to access the files on your laptop unless you pay a certain amount to this certain group or address. But if you get your laptop factory reset, or any device really, and you restore the data you used to have on it from a backup, then the ransomware won't be an issue. And as for question 2, which would be an example of a strong and relatively easy to remember password? Harry Potter 101. Harry Potter is a very common phrase because it's a very famous book series, so that would be the wrong answer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is also a common password, and that's the wrong answer. Option C is a very strong password, but it's difficult to remember. And D would be the most relatively easy to remember and the strongest of the bunch, so I'm glad all of you got that right. But again, you can always use a password manager if you're having any difficulty remembering your passwords. Let's continue. Next section, protecting yourself with knowledge. Fun fact, 80% of all cybersecurity incidents involve human error. So in other words, oftentimes it's not technology that's the weak link, it's us. This is general knowledge that it can apply to almost all websites, and sites that begin with HTTPS and have a padlock icon on the URL bar are generally more secure than sites that begin with HTTP. The S stands for secure. Trustworthy websites should have an easy-to-find privacy policy, usually in a pop-up or at the very bottom of the page. And sites that end in .gov or .edu, .gov stands for government and .edu stands for educational, they are almost always safe to use. And unsafe websites, you should go with your intuition on this one. Beware of websites that have large, strange, invasive, or way too many advertisements, especially if they're explicit, if they're hard to close, like if they have a teeny tiny X in the corner that's hard to see, or if they seem like clickbait. The definition of clickbait, something that is clickbait generally says shocking or suspicious things, like, you won't believe what this woman did to improve her health and live to 200, or you won't believe what this man found in his garage. They're almost always false, and they persuade people to click on them, and they're generally filled with malware or just lead you to some tabloid site. Don't click on these. And also beware of sites that redirect you to another website, especially one that also looks suspicious or looks more suspicious. And lastly, if it makes your browser display a warning when you try to access the site, don't go there. And here are some examples of warnings from various browsers. This one is what Firefox warning would look like. This one is from Safari. And this one is from Opera. If you see anything like this, please do not continue to the website. Close the tab, window, hit the back button, quit your browser, anything that works. And this is for children in particular. Turn Safe Search on in your browser. Safe Search automatically filters out content not suitable for children from search engine results. It's not perfect, but it is very helpful. And there is no magic age for when to allow children to use the internet unsupervised. It depends entirely on your individual circumstances, why your kid is using the internet, and your child's age and maturity. However, children under age 4 should always use the internet with direct supervision, if at all, because there really isn't much of a reason for them to be online. But kids, if you see something that scares or disturbs you online, please tell a trusted adult. They can handle it for you. Don't just ignore it or brush it under the rug. And here are some do's and don'ts. What you shouldn't do, don't send money over public Wi-Fi. For example, online shopping at Starbucks. And don't click on advertisements on websites in general, because even legitimate ads can be infected with malware. Don't share your passwords to mobile devices, as well as credit card numbers and associated PINs. And don't let anyone use your personal information to gain credit. Some of these should be elaborated on in later slides. And things you should do. You should use strong, unique passwords and use 2FA or two-factor authentication whenever possible. Most large social media sites, such as Facebook or Instagram, use two-factor authentication or have the option available for it. The way two-factor authentication works is that the website will send you a text or a message to an app on your phone called Authenticator. Then every time you try and log into the website, you need to enter a new code that they send you. The code will expire in 30 seconds or a minute. This way, even if someone does get your password, they won't be able to access your account without having your phone or access to your texts or apps. And if you have reason to believe one of your accounts has been hacked, change your password immediately and enable two-factor authentication if you haven't already. And to avoid identity theft, avoid giving out your birthday, SSN, and or full name to any organization unless absolutely necessary. And with that, I think it's time for poll number 2. I'll give you another minute and a half for this one. All right, looks like everyone's finished. And I'm glad all of you got both of these completely correct. Let me explain the answers to these questions anyway, quickly. First off, if a site makes your browser display a warning, that means it might be infected with malware and don't go there. A site with many pop-up advertisements should be avoided for the same reasons. And while sites that begin with http:// may not necessarily be filled with malware, sites that begin with https are generally safer. Sites that end in .gov are generally associated with the government, in this case the US government, and so they really should always be safe. Question 2. If you share your credit card number online, especially if you share other associated numbers such as PINs along with it, that'll allow other people to make purchases from your account, and don't do that. If you share your full name and birthday, with or without your SSN, that can make you a lot more vulnerable to identity theft. So you'll be a lot safer if you don't share these things online. All right, let's continue. Using social media safely, the most important takeaway is don't give away your personal information because that can lead to identity theft. What is social media? Social media is a way to share photos, videos, thoughts, ideas, and information online. 4 of the most common examples are Twitter, YouTube, which isn't really social media, but it does have social aspects, Instagram, and Facebook. People use different kinds of social media for different purposes, such as blogging, connecting with friends, or professional networking. For example, users of Instagram might skew younger, like around my age, while users of Facebook are more likely to be adults, and users of LinkedIn, which is a professional networking site, are usually likely to be working adults. And some of the most common social media platforms I haven't mentioned here are Snapchat and TikTok. Setting up social media profiles. I'm not saying social media is inherently bad, because it isn't. It's just another way of connecting with people, which is especially important during the pandemic, since it's a lot harder to talk in person. And so it's perfectly fine to use for older children, so long as some precautions are taken. First, set your account to private, and make sure your profile picture, username, and bio don't give away your full real name or your location. And change your privacy settings so only friends, not friends of friends or everyone, can see your photos and posts. This makes it a lot harder for strangers to know where you're located, while your friends and people you know in real life can find you fairly easily if you just give them your username. Furthermore, try to avoid giving any website your birthday and full name. If you must, provide only your birth year and your first name and last initial. This may not be possible on all platforms, but you do not have to give your entire real full name and your birthday. They don't have any way of checking. You can always enter your birthday as January 1st, whatever year, if you really need to make an account. And change your settings to keep your email hidden. You don't want strangers to have access to your email. And if at all possible, don't make public posts about the exact time and location of any planned events you will be at. This is less about cybercrime. This is more about physical crime because people might break into your house if they know you won't be there. And lastly, ignore any messages from strangers. From my personal experience, and according to the FBI, which is the source for both of these slides, messages from strangers tend to be spam, advertisements, or malware. And for kids in particular, don't respond to hurtful, insulting, or inappropriate messages because bullies thrive off of attention. But this doesn't mean you should ignore them either. Tell a teacher or a trusted adult about the cyberbullying so they can take action if the problem worsens. Don't engage, but report. You shouldn't have to deal with these problems, and let the people who should deal with them. And use the block tool on social media so you won't have to see any more of their hurtful messages and you won't be tempted to respond. And for parents, know the warning signs of cyberbullying. These can be a loss of interest in favorite activities, changes in sleep schedule, a decline in grades, or especially a tendency to be upset after going online. And learn how to take screenshots on all of your devices in case you need to have evidence of hurtful messages or posts that could be deleted by the sender, so you can show these screenshots to the authorities. Oh, and if you don't know, a screenshot is an image of your screen exactly as it is now. So even if the bully deletes their messages, you'll still have the image of what your screen looks like on your phone in case you need to show it to anyone. Depending on the context, severity, and the age of your child, your response should vary with the situation. There is no one size fits all. But this is important. Any threats of physical harm, direct or implied, should always be taken to the police and/or school authorities. And I think it's time for quiz number 3. I'll give you a minute and a half for this. Okay, looks like not everyone had time to finish, but I hope I can clarify the answers to these questions. So first of all, what would be an appropriate username for a John Doe? JD Livermore, that would be a no because it gives away the John Doe's location. And with option 2, John.Doe_27, it reveals his full name. J.D_27, it makes it clear who he is to his friends, and it's a short username that's easy to remember. Remember, with social media, you don't need to be recognizable to complete strangers. You can just give your usernames to the people you know in real life. And question 2, if you get insulting and hurtful messages from another student at school, what should you do? A, ignore the messages and block the sender. This would be a good option, but not the best one, because if you are a student of school age, you should probably tell your parents and or teacher about the cyberbullying if the bully is another student at the same school. You don't want to be harassed in person either. You want to make sure the problem is dealt with. And C, insult the sender and block them. That is the worst option, because if you insult the sender, then they can take screenshots of what you said and use it as evidence against you. You could get in trouble as well. And let's continue. Misinformation and how to recognize it. False information about the COVID-19 virus has run rampant, and here's how to tell what's real and what isn't. Evaluating sources. This is an important skill, and if any of you are students in middle school or high school, you've probably done some of this before. First of all, is your information from a .gov or .edu source? Again, these are almost always safe, accurate, and reliable. There are also some periodicals that are exceptionally well known, such as the New York Times and Washington Post, which are also reliable. And for other ones, you can use an online fact checker such as Snopes or PolitiFact to see if any news organization has political biases or a reputation for spreading falsehoods. And lastly, disregard any social media posts from people who are not experts on the topic at hand. Experts should have qualifications such as a college degree on the topic or extensive work experience. And someone who claims to be an expert on a topic because they spent hours on Google researching it is not necessarily an expert, because anyone can lie on the internet, and even if the poster is telling the truth, their research or the people who wrote the articles that they read off of Google can lie and these articles can be taken as fact. And about the COVID-19 virus in particular, the false beliefs that a lot of this misinformation promotes can be very dangerous because it is a virus and this is a pandemic. So disregard any claims not from reliable sources or any claims that have been disproven by these reliable sources. Be suspicious of any extremely political or emotional news posts. These are designed to cause an emotional reaction, not a logical one, and again, anyone can lie on the internet. If needed, block or unfriend people who consistently post falsehoods and misinformation. And a lot of this misinformation is intended to scare people into buying fake medical products. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. To the best of my knowledge, there is no cure for the coronavirus as of yet, and if anyone's trying to sell it to you, they're probably a snake oil seller or a fraud. Make extensive use of fact checkers such as Snopes.com, factcheck.org, and PolitiFact.com. These are all reputable source checkers that fact check larger periodicals and show information on their biases and times they have been proven wrong. There's also this website, infodemic.blog, which offers more detailed guidelines on recognizing COVID-related misinformation. In fact, why don't we go there and show you? All right, hopefully you can see this. This website is about what the previous slide was about, evaluating sources, and let's evaluate this for practice. About this site, first of all, this site has an About page, and it shows some coverage of the site that has been done by large periodicals, such as you can see here, the Washington Post and the New York Times. It also shows the credentials of the author, who is a digital information literacy expert. This is very relevant credentials to his field of work, which is evaluating sources online. And as you can see, he works at Washington State University, Vancouver, and it looks like he teaches first-year college students how to evaluate and contextualize information sources. And his work has been covered by National Public Radio and the London Times, which are both reputable sources. So it's clear that this site can be a reliable source. And now why don't we have another quiz? This is just one question, so I'll give you a minute. Oh, that was fast. All right, let's continue. So, option 1, a news article someone linked on Facebook. This would be an incorrect option because anyone can write anything and anyone can make their own website and put a link to it on Facebook. The New York Post. This was a trick question. The New York Times is a very well-known source. However, the New York Post is less well-known, has been known to have bias, and on occasion write things that aren't true. And option 3, a celebrity with a large social media following. This is an incorrect option because just because someone is a celebrity or famous doesn't make them a reliable source, because they're still people. 4, the CDC. or the Center for Disease Control. This is a very reliable US governmental organization. And since it's the Center for Disease Control, it's definitely a good source on the coronavirus. And option 5, a Harvard professor of law. This was also a trick question because a Harvard professor of law would have credentials, but not about the coronavirus. Let's continue. Phishing and email scams. Fraudulent emails are a common type of cyber scam, and here I'll show you some examples on advice on how to avoid them. What is phishing, spelled with the PH? Phishing is when scammers impersonate a trusted company or individual to get your account numbers, passwords, or SSN. As I said earlier, the main goal of cybercrime is to get your personal data, your passwords, or your money. So they may impersonate a bank or credit card company, a social networking site, an online payment site or app, for example, the very well-known PayPal, and well-known companies such as Google, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, etc. They might say something vague like, "We have noticed suspicious activity or login attempts. There is some problem with your account or personal information. We want you to make a payment for something. Click on this link. It'll be fine, I promise." Or offer coupons or deals for free products. Here is one example of a phishing email. And here are some things you can know to tip you off if an email is legitimate or not. First off, there's a generic opener, "Hi dear." This indicates the email is a template sent to many people, while Netflix and other large companies generally use your first and last name. The description of the issue is very vague. "We're having some trouble with your current billing information. We'll try again, but update your payment details." Yeah, payment in particular, it's pretty obvious they're trying to get your money. And the use of the header of a well-known company in order to deceive. If you look carefully, this little box around the Netflix icon is blurrier than the rest of the photo. It indicates that they just got it off of Google Images and put it at the top of the email. And here is the second example of a phishing email. This one might be easier to recognize. Again, we have the generic opener, "Dear customer," and a vague description of the issue. "We need your help resolving an issue with your account." And the biggest giveaway, or rather the second biggest, is the numerous grammatical error. "What the problems? We've placed some limitation." And yeah, it generally doesn't look very professional, as you would expect of a large company such as PayPal. But you should always look at who it's from. This email is from PayPal at noticeaccess273.com, which is pretty random. Large companies will generally have their organization in the domain name, which is everything after the @ symbol. But in this case, what's after the @ symbol is pretty random, indicating this email is spam and a scam to try and get your money. And how to avoid phishing and these related scams. To reiterate, check the domain name to make sure it matches the organization. Again, this is everything after the @. There's also something I couldn't find a photo example of, but is also fairly common. It shouldn't be a misspelling of a legitimate domain name. This might read as @amazon.com if you look too fast, but it's actually @arnazon.com, which is not a legitimate company. And be wary of non-personalized messages and unknown senders. And lastly, never open attachments from emails from people you do not personally know, because these can be filled with viruses. And let's have another quick poll. Oh, sorry, I think I was on mute. Anyways, I'm glad all of you got the right answer, which is option 3, a detailed description of the issue with your account or payment. Option 1, a generic opening liner not addressed to you, as can be seen in these scams. "Hi dear," or "Dear customer," that's an indication of a spam email. Grammar or spelling errors that make it seem less professional or a lot harder to read are indicative that it's not from a legitimate company. And option 4, from a sender with a domain name that doesn't match the company, or a random one such as Notice Access 273 or from arnazon.com, these things are also indicative of a scam email. Let's continue. And lastly, identity theft, one of the worst types of cybercrime and how you can prevent it. What is identity theft? Identity theft is when someone uses your identity in a crime or a fraudulent act. You could be charged for crimes you did not commit, and loans taken by the criminal could ruin your credit. In short, credit is any loan you take. A high credit score could let you take loans with low interest rates, while a medium credit score or an okay one would let you take loans with higher interest rates. And if you don't know, lower interest rates means over time you will pay back less than you, and as compared to if you had a loan with a high interest rate, in which you would pay more once you're half paid back the loan. But a low credit score might mean banks refuse to let you take loans at all. And as seen in the example from the beginning of the slides, this could have disastrous consequences on one's future. Because a low credit score can make it difficult or impossible to do anything which requires loans. This includes buying a car, buying a house, taking student loans to go to college, or even use a credit card. And how can you prevent identity theft? Here are 5 ways. First off, read your credit card and bank statements every month. Secondly, never give your credit card number over the phone, unless you made the call yourself and you trust the business or person you're giving it to. 3, report suspicious transactions to your credit card company or bank. And 4, review a copy of your entire credit report at least once a year, and notify the credit bureaus in writing of any questionable entries. And lastly, 5, shred any documents containing personal or financial information once they're no longer needed. And this is security freezes, the most foolproof way to avoid identity theft. Freezing your credit means that nobody, including you, can open any new credit accounts. This includes personal loans, mortgage refinances, credit cards, etc. You can perform a security freeze by using the website or phone numbers of 3 credit bureaus. And these 3 credit bureaus are Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And their numbers are located next to them. Once you freeze your credit, you'll be given a PIN number, which can be used to temporarily or permanently unfreeze your credit. If you want to apply for new credit, you would have to temporarily unfreeze it before or during the process of applying for new credit. This is because security freezes prevent everyone, including you, from opening your account. But if you have your PIN number, you can temporarily unfreeze it to do whatever you want. And security freezes are often confused with something else called fraud alert. These are different, they aren't the same thing. Fraud alerts notify credit agencies and lenders that you may be a victim of ID theft. They will take extra care to check your identity before allowing you to take any loans. Fraud alerts should be done if you have reason to believe you are a victim of identity theft. And while security freezes are done to prevent identity theft, fraud alerts help control the damage if your identity has already been stolen. And children and identity theft, because this topic is important for children, even though it may not seem so at first, because children are 51 times more likely to have their identity stolen than adults are. And furthermore, child identity theft can ruin a child's credit because it doesn't go noticed until the child reaches 18, at which point it may be too late. If you're a minor, retired, or otherwise unlikely to take any loans in the near future, freezing your credit is the easiest and most secure way to protect yourself from identity theft. But make sure not to forget your PIN number. You will need it to temporarily unfreeze your account, such as to take a loan, or to permanently unfreeze your account. For example, if you're a child, but you just turned 18 and now you need your account to take loans. So if you are a minor, having your parents or guardians freeze your credit is a very good way to protect yourself from identity theft and save your future. And I think it's time for the last poll. All right, looks like everyone is done. All right, so question 1. What can you do to prevent identity theft aside from credit freezes? 1. Read your credit card and bank statements. 2. Report suspicious transactions to your credit card company or bank. 3. Shred any documents containing personal or financial information once they're no longer needed. And 4. All of the above. The correct answer is 4. All of the above, because these are 3 of the 5 things you can do, which I listed on the previous slide here, to preserve your credit. And what do you need to do to freeze your credit? A. Call the 3 credit bureaus, and once your credit is frozen, receive your PIN number. This is the correct answer, because options B and C are out of order or otherwise incorrect. Sorry, this might be a little tricky, but it was written down on the slide here. And option B, file a fraud alert, and once your credit is frozen, receive your PIN number. Fraud alerts are different from security freezes, and the other part is correct. Once your credit is frozen, you'll receive your PIN number. But option C, call the 3 credit bureaus and use your PIN number to freeze your credit. That's out of order because you would receive your PIN number after your credit's frozen. So option A is the correct steps in the correct order. And thank you very much for listening to this presentation. Now, before I open up to questions, if you would like to contact me, you can find me at this email address right here, umashankarsemail@gmail.com. And you can contact me there if you want a copy of the slides.